sure Lauren or another member of the team is happy to answer those. She does have a number of knowledge checks for you, so get prepared for those as well. Remember too, there's going to be a recognition event for all participants on May 20th. Lots of opportunities there to win more prizes. So if you didn't win this time or any of the other times, do attend that. David did just drop a link to the training and development participant portals where you can register for future training events. It's also where we are posting all of our recorded trainings and other kinds of resources and handouts for this series. So do go check that out. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Lauren. Lauren, go ahead and share your screen.
Hi guys, I apologize in advance. My internet seems a little iffy, so I'm going to stop my video and see if that helps. But I'm Lauren Profit. Most of you know me. I am the CIP procurement manager for the department. This is the same training that we conducted in the fall. So for those of you who attended back in August, you're expected to answer all of the knowledge checks correctly. For the rest of you, welcome. Thank you for coming. If you were waiting to take detailed notes of how to run a procurement, you can put your pencils down because this is not that kind of training. We're not going to discuss how to do a procurement. Why is that? Well, for one thing, things change. The Muni Code changes, policies change, procurement documents change, and by the time most of you run a procurement, there might be differences. So when the time comes when you need a step-by-step guide to running a procurement, we have a manual and a team, a crack team of 2 that's ready and able to help you. And I mean, secondly, maybe more importantly, I think the how is kind of boring. And I think the why is interesting. And I think the why is a better foundation for understanding procurement. The why keeps us all on the same page and ensures that everyone knows that I'm not running around making things up. So this is the agenda of what we're going to cover today. What is procurement? What does the city procure? What authorities are we working under? What makes public works procurement special? And we're going to talk about some ethics. So just so that you know where this training fits into the overall project management training, we're in phase 4. We're smack dab in the middle of things. Phase 4, which is labeled here bidding and contract execution, it involves working with the procurement support team to prepare your bid documents, advertise a project, open bids, evaluate them, and get the contract awarded by either the Director of Public Works or the City Council. But as I've already mentioned, we're not going to discuss how that works. We're going to discuss why we do what we do. So what is procurement? Procurement is the process of acquiring goods, services, or works from an external source, often via a competitive bidding process. It is, to some extent, shopping with rules. Like all large organizations, the city procures many things: supplies, equipment, materials, and services. And as a public entity, the city also procures public works projects. Not public works, the department, but public works with a small p and a small w. We sometimes refer to public works with a small p and a small w as construction. And the amount fluctuates greatly year to year. Generally speaking, the city procures somewhere in the range of $500 million to $700 million across these 5 categories each year. So big bucks. Like I said, shopping, but with rules. So why do we have rules? Well, because again, we're a public entity. And the public has an interest in making sure that our procurement process is competitive, fair, and transparent. Many of you have heard me say those 3 words over and over again, but that's what we're here to make sure happens. That means that our procurements are open to everyone, for the most part, with rules that are easy to understand and applied evenly and consistently, even when we don't like the result. So where do these rules come from? A variety of sources. They're listed here on the slide roughly in order of authority, meaning the top takes precedence over the rest of them. So we're starting here with the San Jose City Charter. So San Jose is a charter city, meaning that voters of San Jose have adopted a constitution of sorts that asserts local authority over a variety of municipal matters. The charter and any changes thereto are adopted by voters of San Jose. You may remember back in 2018, voters adopted Measure S, which made changes to the city charter, specifically Section 1217, which related to public works procurement. So moving down the ladder, there's the Muni Code. So even when you have a charter change, the city council has to adopt an ordinance, which is the vehicle that amends the Muni Code, in order to effectuate those changes. So even after Measure S was passed by voters in 2019, the council adopted Ordinance 30308 to put the Measure S charter changes into effect. So the charter lays out our guiding requirements, and the Muni Code lays out the specific details. And just as an example, or a visual of what that looks like, City Charter Section 1217 is 4 pages long, whereas Title 27, which is the section of the Muni Code that deals with public works procurements, it's 70 plus pages long. So quite a difference in the level of detail. And I'm going to say Title 27 often in this training. The Muni Code is essentially a volume of 27 different titles. So each has a distinct subject, and the one that pertains to the procurements that we do here in Public Works relating to construction, that's Title 27. So again, as you can see on the slide, there are further procurement policies that are found in city council resolutions and in city and departmental policies. But the big ones are really the top 2. The charter and the Muni Code are really our bread and butter, and everything contained therein should trickle down and become more detailed as you get into your procurement documents. So what about state law? This question comes up on occasion, both from city staff and also from contractors who like to, throw stuff at us. The California Public Contract Code is state law, which is adopted and amended by the state legislature. Sometimes it governs local law, but as we mentioned, San Jose is a charter city and we're governed by our charter. And the California Public Contract Code actually says if you're a charter city and you have a rule that conflicts with this, you have to follow your own rule. So by and large, we operate pursuant to the on the prior slide. Why is it saying I'm muted? Can everyone hear me?
Sorry. Yeah, that was me. I was trying to admit someone from the waiting room and Paul beat me to it.
And you just muted me. Like, what is that? You've had enough? Just leave.
Yeah, that's right.
Where was I? There are exceptions. The major one being that the regional wastewater facility, which is co-owned by the city of San Jose and the city of Santa Clara and operated by the city of San Jose, and gives has a number of tributary agencies who partake in our services. We call that a regional facility under state law, and it's governed by the Public Contract Code. And just as an extra bonus, we do have portions of our Muni Code, even in Title 27, that specify that we will do something in accordance with CPPC section XYZ. So, there are instances in Title 27, we do follow the PCC, but that is just because our Muni Code says we will, and we can change our Muni Code at any time should we want to not follow the CPPC, the CPCC, sorry. So first knowledge check, and if you can just put your answer in chat. If a discrepancy is found between the Muni code and your procurement documents, which authority controls? So going back to my previous slide where we talked about which was the order of precedence, which language would we have to go with if we found there was an error in the documents? So yeah, it's the Muni code. We don't get to pick and choose what we want based on which language benefits us the most. We take the highest order of authority when there is an issue, when we have an error like that. So back to the list of the things the city procures. Of these 5 categories on here, one is unique, and I'm sure you can guess which one that is. The first 4 categories on the list, supplies, equipment, materials, services, they're procured subject to Title IV of the Muni Code. So when the Public Works procurement team works with you to run a consultant procurement, which is one of these types of professional services that you see there, we do so pursuant to the rules in Title IV. And the Director of Finance and the city manager are the procurement authority for most of these items on here. But public works projects are special, and we are therefore special. All of me. Public works projects are carved out from the rest of the categories by both the charter and the Muni code. So we operate pursuant to that highest authority there on that previous list in a way that these other types of procurements don't. So when the procurement team works with you to run a public works procurement, we do so pursuant to the rules in section 1217 of the charter and title 27 of the Muni code. So, and if that wasn't confusing enough, these rules are not consistent across titles. So title 27 differs from title 4 in ways that, we even, Dawn and I have to go back and go, which one is the right here? The protest period. When you run a consultant procurement, you have a protest period that's 10 calendar days. When you run a public works procurement, your protest period is 5 working days. And who gets to sign your contract is different too. So it's important to understand where your rules are coming from and that they differ for each type of procurement. So how do we put all of these rules governing public works procurement into practice? Well, in general, the determining factor for which rules and processes to follow is dollar value. Dollar value will determine if you have to formally request bids or informally request quotes. They determine who has authority to sign your construction contract, whether that's the director of public works or council. And this is just a quick look at how those rules look by dollar value. So when you have a major construction contract, which at the current time are those valued over $620,000, as is noted here, that's adjusted annually. We every year, effective July 1st, we adjust that pursuant to inflation in the construction industry. So that could go down, that could go up every July 1st. But for now, at $620,000, that's our most formal type of procurement. It's a formal request for bids. It's a minimum 10-day advertisement period. The bids are posted publicly to Bidingo. They are open to all bidders with just a few exceptions. There's a public opening. There is a protest period. Like I said, it's a very formal policy. When we talk about projects that are of lesser value than that, so $620,000, we use a informal request for quotes period process, and that has a lot of benefits for the city. There's no specific advertisement period, which means this could go as quickly as you think is practical. It's invite only for the most part. We could publicly bid them should we decide to, but you could pick and choose the contractors that you want to work with, which is nice. There's no protest period. And these actually don't require bid security. Most commonly, that's a bid bond. And so we can run them on Bidingo electronically, which is an added convenience for the procurement team and for project managers. So it's nice when we have these smaller projects that kind of take advantage of the rules that the Muni Code gives us for those. And if you'll notice here, there's also something called micro construction. And we have only had, I think, 2 of these since these were added to the Muni Code in 2019. That's $10,000 or less, again, adjusted annually. No competitive procurement is required. You find a contractor, you get them to agree to do it, you negotiate your contract, you get it signed. Pretty nice. So I should mention there are a variety of other special circumstances where we have some ability to be flexible. There's specialty work, emergency work, times when you've already bid a project and you've had no bids received. But we hardly encounter those issues. But if you do, please come talk to us and we can figure out if your situation merits an exemption from competitive bidding. So we've covered basics and you're all experts now, which brings us to our second topic of the day, which is ethics. So when you participate in a procurement, you're expected to do so in an ethical manner. And I'll say these words again. The City of San Jose is committed to ensuring a competitive, fair, and transparent procurement process. So a lot of this will be a reminder for most of you, but it's worth pointing this out regularly because we tend to forget. The following are some of the policies in place to ensure we uphold the integrity of the city's procurement process. The big one that you will find Don and I referring to all the time is Council Resolution number 77135. So it was enacted in 2014, but a lot of the provisions existed prior to this. This consolidated them. This is called the whole resolution is called the Consolidated Open Government and Ethics Provisions, and it covers a number of things from closed session to public records requests. It covers a number of things, but one specific section is very important to us in procurement and as a department. And this is the procurement and contract process integrity and conflict of interest section. And so we're going to talk about 3 parts of section 7. And the first is that it establishes a communications protocol for procurement. So most critically, after the issuance of solicitations. So if we're talking about a bid, as soon as your bid advertisement date is here and it is on the street, it is on Bidingo, it is viewable, it's out there, all contact between prospective respondents and the city must be directed to the procurement contact designated in the solicitation. That procurement contact is the procurement support team. That's Don and I. Nobody else, no other city staff, elected officials, consultants included, can talk to prospective bidders after that time. Everyone needs to refer all inquiries to the procurement contact. And this is very important, this holds through the end of the protest period. That's a long time. So please be especially cognizant about this protocol during site visits. So it's our practice to take no questions if you absolutely have to have a site visit, no questions. Prospective respondents should be referred to Bidingo where questions can be submitted and answered for all to see. So we do come up on occasion, contractors reach out to you directly. If it's an email, please forward it directly to us. Don't tell them, you don't have to say anything to them. Dawn and I can read it. We know exactly what to do and we will respond to it. We're very responsive to these things, so please leave it to us. If you happen to get a phone call, you don't know who it was, you pick it up. please don't engage, and you can just tell them, like, I'm sorry, I'm not permitted to talk about this. They have our information, whether we have issued a NOIDA, my information is all in there, how to contact me, or whether it's during the procurement, it tells you how to submit a question. So there's not really any excuse for them to be reaching out. So please just forward it on to us, and we will take care of it. And believe it, it's it's better for you if you just let us handle these things. It's you don't want to get in the mix if you don't need to. And similarly, if you need clarification or information from the bidder, we'll do it for you too. Just tell us. We send out letters regularly asking for more information. Just go through us. That is the appropriate way to do it. We have definitely come across violations of this where we have needed to cancel the procurement or rebid the procurement. So please. So given the restrictions on communications during procurements, we have a couple of knowledge checks here. So this first one, as a PM, you really enjoy working with Best Construction Company. You have a project you think they would be the perfect contractor for. Your bid documents were advertised last week. You log into Bidingo and you see they have not downloaded the bid documents. Just put it in the chat. Are you permitted to contact Best Construction Company and let them know about the bid advertisement? What do you think? Yes or no? I really hope you said no, because the answer is no. Please, please, please. If you really have contractors you think are good for your job, give the names to the procurement team. We send out outreach like that regularly. So let us do the hard lifting there. Now, second question, how about this? Bids were opened yesterday and Best Construction Company was not the apparent low bidder. Since you have a good working relationship with them, Best Construction Company calls you with a question about the results. Can you talk to them? The answer, of course, is no. And believe me, you don't want to. If you've got a contractor who has a problem with the bid results and the city's notice of intent to award, you don't want to deal with it. That is why Dawn and I are here. It is not the most fun part of our job, but it is a critical part of our job. So let us handle it. Again, if we opened bids just yesterday, as in this scenario shows, we have not yet gone through the protest period. So that is when you would be able to talk to a contractor, is after that protest period is over. Now, if there is a protest and the protest period is over, we have dealt with a protest, maybe we even responded to a protest, give yourself even more of a buffer. Just let things play out. There's no real reason to jump in there and talk to contractors unless you need to. But if things are all done and clear, the protest period is over, feel free, reach out, let the contractor know you'll be getting the award process going. You'll be expecting them to sign the contract soon. Certainly, then the ball is in your court. So the second part of Section 7 we're going to talk about today deals with confidentiality during the evaluation process. And largely this pertains to evaluative procurements. So RFQs and RFPs, this really wouldn't apply to a bid. But participants in the evaluation process are required to sign a confidentiality agreement stating they will not share any information about responses received and the evaluation process until the city issues the notice of intent to award. So given that, another knowledge check here. If you are a member of a technical evaluation panel and you're currently reviewing the submittals for a consultant RFQ, it's your first time doing this and you're not sure about your scoring, you would like to consult with your senior or your division manager who you know have a wealth of knowledge about TEP evaluations. Are you allowed to talk to them about the submittals? You are definitely not. So one of the hallmarks of our evaluation process, it's not just that it says there that you can't talk, that they're confidential. You are expected to do your evaluating independently. It's how we justify our scoring, really, one of the ways that we do that. So if you have questions, you bring them to Dawn, you bring them to me, and we can help guide you through that process. But you can't talk to anybody else about what you're doing because we're super secret and fun like that. So the third part of Section 7 that we'll talk about today deals with conflicts of interest. And generally speaking, the policy says that the city and its employees will avoid conflicts of interest, and this is important, the appearance of conflicts of interest. So if you were to pull up this policy, you would notice that there is no list given for what constitutes a conflict of interest. That's because conflicts of interest are complicated, and the knowledge about whether one exists or not generally resides with you. So that means your supervisor or me or the attorney's office, none of us have the details to automatically know if a conflict exists. The onus is on you to be aware and to speak up. So participants in the evaluation process are required to sign a second form, which is a conflict of interest form to disclose relationships with potential consultants. You should only participate in an evaluation if you can honestly state that your relationships will not affect your judgment or your ability to execute the assignment in a fair and impartial manner. We regularly have relationships with consultants we're evaluating. We've used them in the past, perhaps. That doesn't automatically disqualify you, but you do need to be able to say that you will have a completely impartial look at their response. So if you have concerns, you need to talk to the procurement team. And if we take a look at your conflict of interest form and we have concerns, we will talk to the CAO or your deputy. So here, another question. If you are a member of a technical evaluation panel and the procurement team sends you a list of firms who've submitted responsive submittals, you notice that one of the firms is your former employer. Can you participate in the TEP? Yes or no? This is actually trick answer number C, maybe so. There is no hard and definitive answer. It's a tricky question. There's no firm answer, but remember that you'll be asked to sign a statement saying that you can act in an impartial manner. And even then, it's best to be as cautious as possible and avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. With all due respect, none of us are so critical that we can't be replaced by another member of our team so that we avoid the appearance that we have a conflict of interest. Let somebody else take your place. It's just better. Again, we want to be fair, impartial, transparent, and the best way to do that is just to be as cautious as possible when we're talking about conflicts of interest. So lastly, I want to mention two ethics policies that are found in the Muni Code: revolving door ordinance and prohibition on gifts. And I will say straight out, I am not an expert at either one of these things, but you should be aware that they exist. The revolving door ordinance relates to those of you who are designated employees, meaning that you are a Form 700 filer, that your position has been designated as needing to file this form every year with the clerk's office. I am one of those people. I file a Form 700 with the clerk's office. And what the revolving door ordinance says, and this was enacted, 2008 or so, and it's an anti-lobbying ordinance for the most part. It says that for 2 years after you separate from the city, if you were a designated employee, there are prohibitions on doing business with the city during those 2 years. So you can't retire, quit, be fired, whatever you do to separate, and immediately start a consulting firm and start submitting responses to the city's RFQs if you were a designated employee. Now, I have no knowledge about which one of you are designated employees. I am not an expert, like I said, but be aware that this exists. Language about the prohibition on hiring former employees, that language goes into all of our consultant agreements. So there's also an onus on the consultant to know if they are hiring someone and there is this prohibition. So be aware of that. The other prohibition, which shows up in the Muni Code and is also in our consultant contracts, is a prohibition on gifts. Again, I'm not an expert. There are certain nominal gifts, I think it's under $50 that you're allowed to accept. It's just best not to accept things. It's just best. Especially, as we're talking about serving in an evaluative capacity for a procurement. I get it, the $50 may be allowable, but if you're then going to sit down and evaluate a consultant, to me, that lends itself to the appearance of a conflict of interest. So be aware of these things. I do firmly believe everyone's making their best effort and acting in good faith. We do need reminders about these things in occasion, but this is in no way meant to be a lecture because I'm seeing everyone do things unethically. Be aware, come to us for help. So in summary, and I should have mentioned at the very beginning of this, there was no way this session was going to go 2 hours. God bless that. So in summary, public works procurements are special. We run them pursuant to special rules. You are special, I am special, we're all special. And so, know where your rules are coming from. And for the love of Pete, don't come tell me that you saw something in a different title of the Muni Code, because, we do things differently. The procurement support team is here to help you. Again, that's me, and that's Don Savage, my better half, to some extent. He works very closely with more of you than I do. And he is a great resource for you to go to as well if you need some assistance. And don't do anything silly. I know we've talked about a lot of serious subjects, and while a lot of those specific rules may not have been familiar to you, I'm guessing that a lot of them sounded like common sense. A lot of them probably wouldn't have passed, a common sense test. So use that as your guiding principle. If nothing else, that you remember here, use your common sense. Don't do anything silly, and we can work with you beyond that. So, are there any questions?
Thanks, Lauren. It looks like we did get one question. I'm just going to repost it in the chat. For informal minor contract procurement, can a project manager contact prospective bidders during the advertising period?
No.
Nope.
We used to, until recently, minor public works procurements were being run by project managers themselves through email. We now do those on Bidingo. This is a fairly recent change, so I apologize for those of you who aren't aware of it, but we do those on Bidingo. The procurement team is the contact. Questions are asked via Bidingo. So this really does help us to kind of gain control over making sure that these rules are being consistently followed for majors and minors.
Cool. And then it looks like you have another question here. What's the preferred contact information for a procurement support team?
Well, you can email me or you can email Dawn Savage. I'll type that in. We are both in the directory. Shoot us an email and we would be happy to help you.
Cool. Any other questions for Lauren? Great. Well, I'm sure that if anybody does think of a question after the fact, I'm sure that Lauren would be happy to answer them through her contact information.
Just kidding.
Oh, never mind. Don't do it.
Frankly, I think Dawn and I spend half of our days answering questions, and that's perfectly fine for us. So shoot them along, and we are extra responsive, I promise. Just send them, and we'll deal with it.
Cool. And Lauren, if you would advance to the next slide, I would appreciate it, and I'm sure Lauren would appreciate it too, if you would take our survey. Any of the feedback that you're providing here today on this presentation will be shared with Lauren, and it's all about how can we improve the training series and future trainings that we provide in Public Works. So please do take a minute to provide that. Also, please join me navigating to the bottom of your screen and maybe doing a reaction, maybe for Lauren. I think I'm gonna do it to Da, to thank her for getting us out of here in such an efficient, timely manner. So lots of sit-eyes.
We're all about getting through things quickly, you know?
Cool. And if you go just to the final slide, Lauren.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Our next sessions and all the future sessions are going to be at the normal time of not 1 p.m.
Yeah, I think so it's next week at 10, I think.
It's at 10. Sorry about any confusion. It's a tricky scheduling system that we're dealing with. It's going to be at 10 a.m. And I'll send out a reminder for that. So once again, thank you so much, Lauren. Any questions, send them Lauren's way, and everybody have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank
you.